Welcome to the Cinematography.
This is a celebration of the art of Japanese animation, the misunderstood and often disregarded world of anime. This is a celebration of its craft, its illustrated splendours and distinctive visual style, its narrative techniques and voices unique to the Japanese sensibility, to show the techniques that make the medium extraordinary, the nuances of the art form that teach us about every art's unprecedented powers of storytelling. This is an ode to the art form that brought us Cowboy Bebop's existential meditation on loneliness, Berserk's exploration of trauma and friendship in the face of pure evil, and Full Metal Alchemist's tale of what brotherhood really means, even against all odds. For anime can be many things. It can be Crayon Shin-chan's parody of Japanese families, Tokyo Ghoul's exploration of identity and morality, Elfin Lied's bloody take on empathy, or Gankutsuo's tragedy of revenge and divine retribution. There's space for all themes, serious or absurd, grandiose or small. And if you feel nostalgia of watching Yu Yu Hakusho in your bedroom after school, well, this video is for you too. This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinemacartography. That's mubi.com/cinemacartography for a whole month of great cinema for free. It's only fitting to start this retrospective talking about the genre that launched anime into the Western world. Roboto anime, or Mecha, was almost a synonym to anime for a long period of time. From the extremely tense style of Mobile Suit Gundam to the city pop fueled super-dimensional fortress Macross, the genre of mecha anime was once the domineering force on Japan's pop culture landscape. Mecha can be broken down into two subcategories, super robots and real robots. While super robots featured quasi-magical abilities, real robots reflected a more realistic approach to the form, parallel to the works of hard science fiction. In Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team, we can see this distinction clearly. Here the design is a reflection of function. Real robots often reflect their military usage. They're manually operated and fueled, reflecting advanced versions of infantry weapons and the concept of industrial production, making it all feel plausible to the viewer. Oftentimes, characters are displayed operating their mechanical beasts. This helps ground the action, as though the world of Gundam could operate in our world's logic. To help cement the feeling of a war drama, characters dialogue in technical terms. As Gundam is a world made of humans and robots, the story in so many ways is told through the interplay of these two elements. The stakes are always high, as we see pilots manually operating the robots and the story developing through close-ups of small details of action, every detail important to the chain of events on the battlefield. But what makes Gundam 8th MS Team truly special is its depictions of character interactions. As their everyday life is surrounded by war, the anime still finds space to explore themes of friendship and redemption. As real as a real robot mecha anime can get, the series is a great counterpart for the over-stylized and grandiose supernatural scopes of the likes of anime masterpiece Code Geass, or even to Gurren Lagan's reinvention of mecha anime through its extreme visual tropes. Mecha can be a great allegory for the inner works of law and order, or the centre of dystopian futures. It can rekindle the childhood tale of Pinocchio through the life of an android boy, or through the remains of a lost cyborg in a post-apocalyptical future. For nothing reminds us so vividly of what it means to truly be human than the uncanny parallel of robotics. The incessant mirror raised upon our eyes, making it almost impossible to look away at our own flaws, our own shortcomings, our own mortality. In Neon Genesis Evangelion, this mirror might be just too painful to watch. At a first glance, Eva is a classic mecha anime. The year is 2015 and the world stands on the brink of annihilation. Humanity's last hope is NERV, a shadowy agency of the United Nations responsible for the production of Evangelions. Biomachines that can defeat beings called angels as they attack the futuristic fortified city of Tokyo 3. The protagonist, Shinji, is a teenage boy recruited by his own father Gendo, the head of the organisation, to pilot an Evangelion. The anime explores the mental development of the pilots and members of NERV as they try to prevent yet another cataclysm or impact. But to say that that's all would be a lie. The anime completely subverts the ultimate mecha anime tropes. It turns the sanctity of father and son relationships upside down, recasting Gendo as a sinister and distant figure. While the teenage protagonist is not a genius pilot, but simply a boy entering manhood. An introvert full of insecurities and weakness that he can't seem to cope with. Shinji feels alone, and this loneliness seems to permeate the whole story. He doesn't have anyone close to him, but yet fears intimacy and is not ready for a real connection. He can't seem to pull himself together as he's convinced himself that his life is worthless. But again, Neon Genesis Evangelion is more than that. It's been interpreted as a deep expression of its creator's own emotional struggles. A character-driven story based on Japan's lost generation. A venture into postmodernist anime narrative form, a psychological drama about the theories of Carl Jung and Freud. And it's all of that. The Neon Genesis Evangelion packages itself as a traditional mecha anime, only to reinvent the form completely. unafraid of even stripping away all colour, all formality of design, breathing new life into anime conventions. Aesthetic and storytelling are hand in hand, as the visual tropes here informs both lore and symbolism. The art direction references mystical traditions in Judaism and Christianity, interlacing symbols together to create new meanings. Angels here are merciless creatures. They pace about Tokyo 3 in search of pure destruction. Evangelions are biomachines that, although gigantic, carry a sense of fragility in both the elegance of their form and the stoicism of their movements. Their veins dilate, they bleed, as to remind us of the ever symbiosis they share with their pilots. Every character in Evangelion is multidimensional, and because of it, we get to see them interact in a multitude of ways. Through silence, through an exchange of gaze within each other, through banter. The climax of the series is a tour de force of storytelling, rarely seen in any medium, an explosion of mixed media that only serves to solidify the anime's themes, the deep emotional state of its characters, represented through a collage of both form and meaning. Through the distortion and destruction of their bodies, as much as the psychological destruction we follow throughout the piece. Neon Genesis Evangelion is a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, a reflection of an industry in existential crisis, reshaped and reborn. Serial Experiments Lain was another incredibly influential anime of the 90s that helped shape the industry's future. By no means a conventional linear story, Lain's strength lies in its range of thematics, all explored within the main plot. The series focused on Lain Iwakura, a young girl in middle school living in suburban Japan whose life is altered by the introduction of the Wired, a communication network similar to what we know as the internet. Themes in Serial Experiments Lain range from the theological to the psychological, as the anime deals a lot with the introspection of its main character in the face of the real world. Our protagonist is extremely introverted, strangely detached from her family and from life at school.
Iwakura-san? Iwakura-san. はい。ここ、テストに出るわよ。
Getting more and more attached to the Wired, which in return shapes her understanding of herself through a series of disassociations.
Log in, Lain. Authorized. Mail.
Those disassociations are made evident through the anime's non-linearity. That, paired with the slow burn pacing of the narrative, allows us to get a closer insight into the fragmentation of the main character's psyche. The intriguing thing about Lain is its use of hard science fiction to shape the world. There's a sense of tactility in the technology that's used because it's based in the technology we used in the 90s, and although the story goes into deep philosophical lengths, the parallels within the plot's themes and the real world becomes less abstract.
この世界はね、レイン。リアルワールドでもワイヤードでも人間はみんながつながって、それで社会が動いてる。
This is because much like the anime Texhnolyze, Lain's approach to technology is fundamentally nihilistic.
不思議な感情ですね。愛というのは。
And because the animated form is an excellent medium for the creation of allegories, the anime's creators want us to question our involvement with technology's alternate realities, to question our willingness to become personas of ourselves on the wired world. And in both animes, there's no escape from the consequences of this interaction.
どうして泣くの？誰の記憶からも自分を消してしまったから？
Lain's descent into the wired creates a struggle to reconcile her real self with her projected personas, and in Texhnolyze, the technological advancement isn't without its sociological implications of Orwellian magnitude. For anime has the power to re-signify storytelling conventions that go beyond the anime form itself. Take thrillers as an example. More often than not, these stories are villain-driven plots, centered around the obstacles the main protagonist needs to overcome. As thrillers are often motivated by clues and the piecing together of information as the narrative progresses, the protagonist and the villain are pushed to their limits. But how can anime re-signify that? Death Note subverts a lot of these tropes, proving that genre conventions are not always that simple. Here we follow the story of Yagami Raitu, a teenage genius who finds a Death Note, a notebook which belonged to the Shinigami Ryuk, and grants its user the ability to kill anyone whose name is written in its pages.
まったく、こうなるとどいつもこいつも殺した方が世の中のためになるやつばかりに見えてくる。
The anime then follows Raitu's attempts to use the Death Note to wipe out individuals which he has deemed morally unworthy of life, and the elite task force, led by L, that's trying to stop his massacre. But in anime, nothing is that simple. As Death Note has justice as its central theme, it becomes very clear that both central characters of the story have a warped sense of what law and order really means.
Yagami Light. Sayonara, Rei Penba.
Raitu is self-righteous, suffering from a god complex. He watches crime shows from his TV while studying for his exams diligently. This helps create a sense of detachment. Raitu never needs to touch anyone to kill them. He never needs to step down from his delusions.
どんなバカでも悪人が誰かに消されているってことに気づくだろ。世の中に知らしめるんだ。僕の存在を。正義の裁きを下す者がいるってことを。
L is also a genius, but socially inept. We get to see him mostly through a screen, creating a sense of omniscience to the character.
非常に興味深い情報です。もしかしたらその死亡推定時刻から犯人は学生である可能性がありますね。
Just like the ever-present screens of news, L infiltrates Raitu's life. But L is not driven by a desire to clean humanity, but merely by curiosity. He wants to solve the mystery. Kira is a puzzle that entertains his highly active mind.
あの中にキラがいたとしてもボロは出しません。いや、何も出さずに今まで通り犯罪者を葬っているということです。
As two geniuses are put against each other in a battle of wits, justice becomes just too close to their egos. This dichotomy is made evident through the characterization of the protagonists. While L lurks behind Raitu, we often see him from weird, uncomfortable angles. He's full of eccentricities in the way he moves, in the way he sits. L's human qualities are portrayed as almost ghost-like.
八神さん。近日中私が死んだら息子さんがキラです。
He's characterized by his deep eyes, his pale and languid presence. Meanwhile, Raitu is portrayed as a model citizen, hiding his true self behind his social roles as a son or a good student.
何か欲しいものはないの？何でも言って。
別にないよ、母さん。欲しいものは手に入った。
It's only fit that they both come to represent good and evil in reverse. As the story progresses, L and Raitu's vision of justice becomes more and more black and white. Only this time, we're left wondering, what does justice mean to me?
じゃあ、もうあんまり面白いものは期待できないな。
そんなことないよ、リュウク。これからは新世界の創生を見せてやるよ。
Urasawa Naoki's Monster is arguably one of the best thrillers ever written. Sophisticated in storytelling and in its complex plot weaving, Monster tells a tale as grandiose in scope as it is ever-encompassing. Dwelling in the classic moral tropes of thriller writing, Monster is a classic story of good versus evil, represented here by the main character Dr. Tenma and his antagonist Johann Liebert, an angelic-looking young man that is the embodiment of evil genius. Being told in 74 chapters, Monster follows numerous arcs, spending numerous episodes with the same body of characters. Realistic in its approach to tone, the evil in Monster feels omniscient, not by supernatural abilities, but by a network of corruption and deceit, all revolving around Johann Liebert.
ヨハンを迎えるためのな。
ヨハンはそんなこと望んではいない。ヨハンは確かにこのフランクフルトにやってきたわ。でもあなた方のリーダーの一人とその部下を殺して去っていった。
For although Johann's angelic appearance hides an improbable enemy, both soft-spoken and gentle, he holds a dark past that has twisted his perceptions of the very same fabric of society he wants to destroy.
子供が見てるよ。
待て。見ていてくれ。逃げないでくれ。私はドイツで教師をやっている。
For evil in Monster is ready to implode from everywhere. All Johann needs to do is find it and ignite the flames.
どうです？飲みませんか？
And because Monster is so concerned with the absolute questions of good and evil, the journey of Dr. Tenma is engulfed by threat, as he's constantly tested by every encounter. This means that with the realistic pacing of Monster, we get the chance to see the moments of absolute darkness with the same weight we learn to cherish the moments of friendship and hope. Urasawa explores with rigour the psychological threat of one individual turned monster.
君と僕だけだ。僕には計画があるんだ。
As we slowly unveil Johann's past, we also explore the connections of evil to its sociological terrain.
お前が何を見てしまったか、何を知ってしまったか。ミロシュ、聞いてくれ。お前には母さんがいない。だがな、お前が生まれてきたのには意味がある。
Monster chooses to elevate thriller tropes to create a masterpiece, akin to Psycho-Pass's realistic approach into character development and Paranoia Agent's grandiose look into collective paranoia. Monster is a thriller that's built with a visual weight that's only matched by its fiercely intelligent tale. Playing down anime conventions in search for a more grounded look.
母さんの帰りを、ヨハンの帰りを、この絵本を読みながら。
人間はね、何にだってなれるんだよ。
The anime Kuuchu Buranko does the complete opposite of Monster. Dealing in the realms of fantastical colours and absurd narrative, it transgresses both the thriller and the dark comedy medium completely. As we follow the psychiatrist Irabu's descent into madness, all formalities and visual rules are gone.
治療の一環だよ。治療？そうだな、治療だよな。よし、治療なんだ。
The anime aesthetic here is ever-changing. The classic anime-style drawings are paired with a realistic rotoscopic element, sometimes one over the other.
無意識のうちに抑圧していた感情を表に出すことで症状を緩和していくのは心理療法の王道です。見てろよ!
The anime utilizes hyper-saturated color palettes to evoke a hyper-reality feel that's only matched by its inconsistent pacing. The use of mixed media helps create an unnerving setting that serves to elevate the absurdity of the script writing. Similarly is the surrealist mini-anime Nekojiro Sou's approach on death and grief. And the anime series, the Tatami Galaxy. The series is a mashup of genres, told through some of the boldest imagery we've ever seen in anime. To evoke the idea of a parallel universe, the aesthetic here spills into surrealism. There's a mix of incongruous colorscapes, from his use of complete desaturation into black and white, to the most extreme monochromatics that help cement his graphic design approach to the story. As the characters experience intense feelings, that same emotion is translated to the image. The character's inner world is directly connected to the dreamscape created on the anime, in the form of patterns that emerge in the backgrounds, and the line weight that allows for shifts in perspective and pace. In fact, Masaki's complex paneling is more concerned with storytelling than with realism. So it's not uncommon to see very over-the-top abstractions. This allows for the story to flow in every corner of the diegetic space. Concepts are then imprinted in every detail of a scene, delivering a rich imagetic experience. Over-conceptual animes like Ergo Proxy tend to bridge the gap between storytelling and visual style. In the case of Ergo Proxy, the palette is somber, mixing industrial colours to an otherworldly use of blue tones, mixing the cyberpunk elements with a dose of hard science fiction. This type of graphic mashup can be used to cement the pacing of the story, much like is done in Mushishi, where the calmness of the landscape pairs with the overall atmosphere of the story. Or also to help establish the overall tone of the narrative, much like is done in the slice of life Barakamon. But every now and then, the visual style's unsuitability to the plot is what makes an anime stand out from its counterparts. Horror, dark fantasy, and sci-fi are classifications that imply a certain type of formula. They tend to play into certain colour schemes, art, and pacing to create atmosphere. But what happens when an anime decides to break down all of those conventions? Well, animes like Mononoke happen. a horror tale all told through the abundance of colours, textures and patterns, with almost no use of dark colours at all.
ずっとそこで笑っていたのでしょうね、もののけのぬえ。
It's pure stylistic experimentation, borrowing from historical Japan, but always reinventing the culture through its avant-garde approach. And that's the thing about genre. You can really have two main ways of approaching it. You can fight against it, trying to reinvent it in the hopes of creating something extremely unique, much like Samurai Champloo's reinvention of the samurai tale through music and movement. Or Ore Monogatari's completely unexpected love story. Or you can run with the tropes, elevating it to new grounds, finding new ways of exploring its cliches and commonplaces, celebrating all its virtues, which is the case of the epic Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and its unique approach on sociology through sci-fi. Anime Kemonozume and Kaiba, both experimental and avant-garde endeavours by Masaki Yuasa, are further evidence that anime can be pushed to its limits in its visual grammar in order to completely transform or affirm genre aesthetics. Good storytelling often overlaps and excels above all that. This is the case for the widely loved Dragon Ball series. The deeply moving Rurouni Kenshin, or for the criminally underrated shoujo, Nana. Storytelling and graphic style walk hand in hand with the aesthetic of anime, for design and animation can inform story as much as dialogue and plot. This is evident in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures' satirical approach to Shonen Jump.
ハネムーンはアメリカへか。おっと、もうこんな時間だ。ジョースターさんたち出ちまうぜ。
Because the writing is over the top, the character design is also flamboyant.
これで決着よ。
Faces are heavily detailed, male bodies are rigorously muscled.
失笑でした、カズ様。うまいぜ。
The uniqueness of JoJo lies in its contrast. The dichotomy between the silliness of the content and the seriousness of its presentation is what reinforces visual comedy.
客観的に自分を見れねえのか、バカ。Come on!
The dramatic music, irreverent camera angles, and character poses makes the humour in JoJo unique.
おい、数字いけ。何がキャラだ。やかましい。静かにしろ、バカ。
For Shonen Jump and Shoujo are often cast aside as merely commercial anime, not analysed or admired in the same level of their more, quote, sophisticated counterparts.
そして一刻も早くエリナばあちゃんの笑顔を見るんだ。
JoJo plays with this misconception, creating a thought-provoking anime aesthetic based in pure camp.
ジョージは初めて飛行機に乗った勇気あるパイロットの一人で。
Exaggerated colours allow for drastic shifts in tone, emphasising dramatic moments, as well as emphasising the absurdity of it all. Much like One Punch Man, There's a self-awareness in the way visual comedy and story are intertwined to highlight the absurdity of the story itself. For animes of the weight of the Sakura Cardcaptors series are often our introduction to the form. The seemingly innocuous story of a magical girl and her friends as they enjoy life between school and capturing claw cards hides underneath pastel-like dreamscapes, and a deep story of redemption through friendship. For it might have been through Madoka Magica's use of mixed media to ground the magical girl genre, or with Sailor Moon's underrated comedic genius that you saw yourself fascinated with anime. It might even have been through Naruto's exploration of Japanese mythology. The point is, anime is not a lesser art because it plays in the realms of the fantastic, or because every now and then it's unapologetically weird. It's a braver, more encompassing art form because it dares to be unique, to explore themes and storylines we don't often see in Western art forms. Anime is an art form undoubtedly overlooked. Perhaps it's merely because of its alien-like nature to Western norms. But breaking beyond that simple boundary grants us access to an unparalleled world of storytelling. Whether it's Steins Gate exploration of time travelling gone wrong, Mob Psycho 100's psychic-able protagonist consumed by trouble, Inuyasha's fables of lost Japanese mythology, Hajime no Ippo's tale of resilience through boxing, or Chobitz's deep reflection on what it truly means to be human through the life of a Persicon. Anime can no longer be perceived as a lesser art, for within it lies a story for every taste, for every sensibility, and for every moment. We'd like to thank Mubi for sponsoring this video. Mubi is a curated streaming service, an ever-changing collection of hand-picked films from new directors to award winners from everywhere on earth. Beautiful, interesting, incredible movies, and a new one every single day and always carefully chosen by Mubi curators. You can stream or download all of Mubi's movies anytime, on any screen, any device, anywhere, and you'll never see a single ad on Mubi. Mubi adds a new film to its ever-growing catalogue every single day, and on Mubi US, you can watch Mamoru Oshii's masterpiece Ghost in the Shell. Just some of the many animations we mentioned, and more, you can find exclusively on Mubi. You can try Mubi for free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinemacartography for a whole month of great cinema for free.